As Jesus enters Jerusalem this morning, the city is abuzz, bustling as people are preparing for the holy festival of Passover, preparing to offer sacrifice and give their temple tax. Pilgrims purchase animals and exchange Roman coins for coins appropriate for the temple, coins made of a finer quality of silver and without graven images. Vendors fill the city. The closer one comes to the temple, the more the vendors and the greater the price. The louder the shouting for attention. The vendors along the outside wall of the temple are well versed at bargaining, making the people feel they have gotten a really good deal at a great price. The vendors are all vying for business because in Jerusalem, the business is the temple. And taking care of people's spiritual needs, providing for their sacrifices and their donations makes up the base of the economy. But today, as Jesus enters the gate of the temple, the animals are inside, in the court of the Gentiles. This is a new occurrence, and he is instantly consumed with zeal. He takes a moment, finds a cord, braids it into a whip, and then with purpose directs that anger out, cleansing the temple. He drives out the sheep and the cattle, pours out the coins, and overturns the tables. Then he turns to the sellers of the doves and says, "Take these things out of here. Stop making my Father's house a marketplace." In the Gospel of John, it is at the beginning of Jesus' ministry that his zeal and anger are kindled, and his anger rises at the injustice of exploitation of the poor and infringement on the sanctuary of the marginalized. The Sadducees have moved the market from outside the temple walls into the court of Gentiles, the place where Gentiles, those who were drawn to God but who had not been circumcised or who had not fully committed to the faith, could come to worship. It was as close as they could come to entering the temple itself. It was their sanctuary within the temple gates. The doves or pigeons were a poor person's offering for sacrifice. If you remember, Mary and Joseph offered pigeon when Jesus was born. The prices on the animals for sale within the temple gates increased greatly, creating an even greater burden on the poor. Jesus' zeal in the moment calls to the disciples' mind the prophecy, "Zeal for your Father's house will consume me." When questioned by the temple authorities, Jesus responds with a prophecy of his own, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Jesus is speaking about the temple of his own body, and he is speaking from above, and the authorities are hearing his words from a place below. Often in our earthbound understanding, we miss the mark because we are not able to grasp the boundlessness of God. Understanding often comes in hindsight. It was only after the resurrection that understanding began to break in. In the early encounters with the resurrected Christ, the disciples began to have aha moments. Oh, now we understand as much as anyone is able to understand on this side of the veil. As we have experienced in the past year, it is interesting that when things are out of place or out of order in people's lives, in situations, or in the world, people often feel untethered, disoriented, and the responses to what is happening vary. People can become or feel unsettled, anxious, and do things to alleviate the distress. Or they may seek peace through meditation and prayer, or turning to nature to stand in the awe of God at work in creation. Or people come to that recognition of the injustice of the disorder or actions towards others, and compassion and anger are kindled, resulting in actions to address the injustice. Jesus sets about setting things in order for everyone, especially the marginalized and underprivileged. He talks about the destruction of the temple, which is the temple of his body, and it is the place where God and humanity meet. It is the temple where all of humanity is welcomed, embraced, and loved. The poor, the marginalized, the disenfranchised, and the imprisoned, as well as the rich, the established, and the free. In Jesus, God calls everyone home with open arms to embrace each one. As the Ten Commandments or the Decalogue calls us beyond ourselves into relationships that honor God, self, family, and neighbor. So in this time of this season of Lent 2021, and as we tend the soil of our souls, notice the soil in which you dwell. Notice the quality of the soil. Is it anxious? Is it filled with awe? Or is it filled with zeal? There is great richness in this time. Take note of what seeds are being planted in your soul, taking root and emerging to enrich the world today. You are beloved children of God, chosen. If you were born, you were chosen. Everyone who is born is chosen as a beloved child of God. Yes, even the most egregious among us is a beloved child of God. Just this week, Pope Francis traveled to Iraq to meet with the remnant fragment of Christians there, to lift their spirits, to let them know they are remembered and that they are beloved children of God, as are all the people there. He came for the Christians, but he met with everyone. Pope Francis made a cry for peace and brotherly love. He said, the greatest blasphemy is to profane God's name by hating our brothers and sisters. Hostility, extremism, and violence are not born of a religious heart. They are betrayals of religion. In his meeting with the Ayatollah Sistani, the highest religious authority of the Shiites, Pope Francis thanked the cleric for speaking up, together with the Shiite community, in defense of those most vulnerable and persecuted amidst the violence and great hardships. In Ur, the ancient home of Abraham, Pope Francis said, "This blessed place brings us back to our origins. We have returned home." I invite you to embrace this moment and every moment to be a presence, a champion for one another, especially for the disadvantaged and disenfranchised children of God. And as Pope Francis said, love is our strength. So be it.